everyone. I'm Danielle. I am a CNCF ambassador. I manage the Cartograph Host working group. So we put together the cloud native maturity model that really helps people when they're new to cloud native or they're trying to explain cloud native to their bosses and trying to get everything off the ground. You can use the cloud native maturity to help you. So I'm here from that point of view. Over to my co-presenter.
Thank you. Andy Grabner. I'm also a CNCF ambassador like you, 2 years in. And today, April 1st, it's not an April Fool's joke, but it's my 17th anniversary at Dynatrace today. Woo! So as you can see, it's a passionate topic for me, observability and performance. And we talk about DORA Metrics. And maybe one thing, I remember last year I was at a conference and had a talk about DORA with somebody else. And after about 10, 15 minutes, we figured out that we talk about completely different things because the other person was talking about the Digital Operationals Resiliency Act of the EU, and I was talking about DORA metrics. So we're talking here about the DevOps efficiency metrics.
Yes. Fingers crossed we're on the same page.
Perfect.
So we want to, let's see if it works. It's not clicking.
I'll click for you.
My lovely assistant will click for me.
It doesn't click for me either. I'll click with my, I click on the next. Here we go.
Okay, so quick show of hands. Are you new to DORA? Okay. Do you understand DORA, but you are still trying to implement it? New hands. Okay. You've already implemented DORA. You're here to learn what's next. Okay, and then you just think DORA is a lie, and you just. Oh, we got one, no. Okay, so, maybe a quarter of each of these and then one person that thinks DORA's a lie. Okay, we wanted a scene set just so we knew kind of who we were talking to. It's interesting to see who's implemented, who's not. So I'm gonna do a quick run through of DORA metrics. So if you're not interested in the quote, these are my dogs, Maddie and Lola. So they'll be showcased throughout the presentation. So DORA metrics, they're about helping us identify high-performing teams, low-performing teams, but the thing that I like is how we can improve, how we can make everything better, software delivery, et cetera. And really the thing that I find so interesting about it is connecting DORA metrics to the business impact it's going to have, because it can go there, and we're going to visit that later on in the presentation on how you can connect that. The QR code here is to the 2024 report. This latest report talks a lot about burnout, what to do with people, so it's kind of an interesting take on DORA metrics. So at a huge high level, 4 main DORA metrics to just cover off. So we have deployment frequency. How many times are you deploying a day, a week, a month? And that's going to be 10 times, 5 times, 100 times if you're a really sophisticated organization over the course of what said period. You have your change lead time. So is it taking me, less than 24 hours to deploy? Is it taking me, 5 days? What is that metric? And then we look at the failure rate. So our change rate, or how many times we deploy and it fails, it doesn't work. And then how much time it takes to recover. Is it less than an hour? Is it a few days? Is it 6 months, which would be really, really bad if it's 6 months. So please don't let that be the case. So these are kind of the 4 key DORA metrics that we're going to be talking about, you're going to be talking about. But DORA metrics can be hard to track. So most teams don't have a clear view of that. Data's all over the place, right? You have it in different silos. And there's a bunch of gaps, right? So real-time insights, reporting, visibility, and the business, the thing that I think is the business cares about your DORA metrics, but they might not know why. So with that, over to you to give us how you've done DORA metrics.
All right, so first of all, if you would put the relationship between DORA and yourself and also myself on a status page, you will probably call it, it's complicated, right? Because DORA is not easy. I want to give you a couple of highlights of 2 talks that we've been doing last year at Salt Lake City at KubeCon. These QR codes get you to the recordings, so I'll give you a quick overview and some additional ideas. Also, I will be talking a lot about extracting DORA metrics from your CI/CD, whether it is GitHub, whether it's Jenkins, whether it is GitLab, Argo, whatever you use, there's ways to extract a lot of the metrics using observability. And thanks to the open telemetry community, we also now are getting a standard on how these tools should give us this type of data so we can actually track pipelines, how we can uniquely identify an artifact from its inception of the idea until it's being deployed. So I will come back with these QR codes later on as well, but let me quickly go in and actually start with a quick show of hands, because the first use case is from our organization, but first I want to understand who you are. Quick show of hands, who is building a platform in here for development organizations of a size smaller than 100? Okay, between 100 and 1 and 1,000 to be accurate here, and more than 1,000? All right, it's a good sized companies, but I think we are probably around in the middle. That's where the majority is. When you asked me to present about DORA in practice, I thought I'd quickly give you some insights on what we do at Dynatrace. You can see here just some numbers. We are approaching about 2,000 developers worldwide. You can see 300 builds a day, different staging environments. We are deploying on all different sort of cloud vendors. The thing is, like probably you as well, we have a very complicated tool set. Our SDLC, our Software Delivery Lifecycle, has everything, as you can see here, still from Jenkins, where we build a lot of our code that we've been developing for many, many years. I mentioned I've been there for 17 years. You can imagine 17 years ago, we built software in a different way than we do it now, but we still have a lot of software that we still need to build and maintain. Hence, we have also different tools for CI and for CD, for operating and for making sure that these systems stay healthy. I assume some of these tools, these logos, will look familiar to you. Lots of tools involved from Git commit to prod. There's also a lot of challenges along the way, and I'm pretty sure these are also challenges that you have, right? Our developers are asking us, why are things taking longer than expected? I just made a fix to a security issue. Why is it now taking twice as long as it used to be? Which systems are even involved? What tools is actually processing my code, and what happens between Git commit and production deployment, right? These are all questions that if you don't know the answer, it's actually very hard for you to come up with the DORA metrics, because if you don't know what happens from Git commit to production, then you don't know how to monitor this time, and you don't know if something is deployed and doesn't work as expected, also how you are calculating the deployment failure rate. There's some more challenges, right? The more stages you have, the more questions will come up. So for instance, where is my service? If I have a new version of my service, is it still stuck in a QA environment because somebody doesn't do all the testing? Is it stuck somewhere, maybe on the way to the customer? It's still behind a feature flag because nobody has yet dared to turn on that feature flag. So the question is often, where is my app? These are all questions that we as a software organization have, and I'm pretty sure you, as you're growing your organization, you will have the same issues. Now, at Dynatrace, I mentioned that I also have a couple of colleagues. Please also hold me accountable. I mean, don't throw me off the stage if I say something wrong, but we've been doing software engineering, and we've built internal platforms over all the years that I've been there. This year, what we call Juno, is our latest approach for a software platform for our engineers to build new features. We call it apps on top of the Dynatrace observability platform. And what you see here is basically at the top, this is the process for engineers, how they go about developing a new app in Dynatrace. And on the bottom, and some of these folks actually sit here in the first row that built this, these are all the tools that make sure the following process works as good as possible. Everything in Dynatrace starts with a Jira ticket. This is kind of when a new idea is born. Then our developers go into Backstage, where they say, I want to now build a new app based on a template where I only need to specify who am I, what type of app do you want to build, what is the Jira ticket that I am actually implementing. This will then automatically create a Git repository with all of the different configuration files that are needed, source code, your pipelines, your observability checks. The idea is then that our developers, as fast as possible, get their code deployed in the different environments, in the dev environments, and they can automatically connect to it using their IDE, getting easily access also to observability. We are an observability company, so we want to make sure that observability is there for them available without going to too many hoops. So this is the platform that we are currently building, and I know I see the first guys in the first row. They are the ones that are maybe, if you have detailed questions as well, we can talk about challenges and talk about lessons learned on the way over. Now, coming back to DORA Metrics, we want to make sure that every single tool that we are using in our platform is observed, because if Jira is down, if Bitbucket is down, if GitHub is not accessible because we have reached the API limit, if Argo doesn't work as expected, then we have a big problem, because then we cannot deliver as fast as we want if these tools don't work. So everything starts with making sure that all of these tools are observed to make sure these systems are running. What we then did is we evolved from just making sure these systems are up and running and working as expected to also getting insights into those pipeline tools. So for instance, if you're using GitHub, GitHub has webhooks that you can use to understand when is a pull request being opened, when is a new repository created, when is a GitHub action executed, when is a workflow executed. We can analyze this to get a better understanding what is really going on in our pipelines, as you can see here on some of the dashboards, getting insights based on webhooks. Argo, who is using Argo here? Quick show of hands. I was earlier at the ArgoCon, and a guy, he did a presentation on SLIs and SLOs for Argo. He, for instance, talked about that he provides an SLA to their engineers to make sure that syncs, Argo syncs, are 99.99 successful, and they are finished within a certain amount of time. How do you get this information? There's metrics, but there's also notifications in Argo that you can also use to extract this data, so you know how often is Argo syncing, how long does it take, where does it maybe fail, where does it slow down. We also then, if we have all this data, we can analyze which tool is currently doing what particular job in which stage. And especially answering the question, where is my code? How fast did it get there, and what does it take to get it to the next stage? If you look at it end-to-end, right, and now I know this was a very quick overview and a very simplified version of Git commit from what happens between Git commit and production deployment. There's many different steps that happen from the first idea, from the first creation of the repository, from the first Git commit until things are in production. There's many stages involved, many different tools and tasks involved. The point is, you want to understand and you want to make sure that you in your organization can track an artifact across all of these stages, which is actually not easy, because in our industry, I think we have a challenge to uniquely track an artifact that initially starts in a Jira ticket, in a Git commit, until it gets then built and deployed. Fortunately, well, a couple of things. We internally at Dynatrace, we have defined our own, what we call SDLC events, Software Delivery Lifecycle events, where we sat down and specified what type of tools can emit what type of information for us to track everything from end to end. And while this is our standard, the Open Telemetry community has also worked and is currently working on a standard to define a semantic dictionary on how all the different DevOps tools that you're using in your environments, from Git commit to production, what type of data they should emit to uniquely track an artifact, a pipeline run, a test, a deployment. I will come to the Open Telemetry community in a second. This is how we have defined it. We also internally then use this data that we collect, put it on dashboards, and use it for analytics to figure out where, in which particular phase of this DevOps lifecycle are our tasks and artifacts. So now to the Open Telemetry community. Open Telemetry is pushing this as a standard, and again, we are collaborating with them because we want to make sure, as tools like Argo, GitLab, GitHub, all of the other tools that we have in our ecosystem, as they are hopefully adopting the way that Open Telemetry wants us to create events, not just webhooks that are very specific to a particular tool, but webhooks and notifications and events with particular semantics. If we're getting there, then it's going to be easier for everyone, for you and also for any type of vendor to provide analytics on top. Check out the blog post from Doten and also from Adriel. They're also here at KubeCon, 2 CNCF ambassadors that are driving this standard. Tell them your tools that you need, that you're using, and try to figure out how your tools can also adhere to that standard that they are providing. The more that are adopting the standard, the easier it will be. Coming to the standard, I mean, we'll share the slides, and you'll also find all of this in the blog post. But really what the standard does, it provides a semantic convention around what information should these tools emit as they're doing build, deploy, test, release, finding problems, or retiring a solution. One other talk that I was fortunate enough to co-present last year in Salt Lake City was actually one particular implementation of this. This was Nicolas Werner von Clario. He used GitLab, and he built, if you're using GitLab, he actually built an open telemetry collector receiver that can receive webhooks from GitLab and convert it into open telemetry traces. So for any GitLab pipeline, you get an end-to-end trace, and it's already automatically enriched with the right fields based on the semantic convention that the open telemetry community is putting out. So what he really did, if you're familiar with GitLab, on the top, you get this visualization of the GitLab pipeline. Everything looks green. Green is great, but green doesn't tell you how long these individual steps take. So, and on the bottom, what he built, he's simply taking the webhooks from GitLab and converting it into a distributed trace so that he immediately sees with every single build, every single pipeline, which steps were executed, how long did they take. He also uses this information to figure out which steps have been omitted. Did anybody comment it out, maybe the security check? Did anybody avoid the tests? He's then finding traces of projects, of teams that are not adhering to their company standards, right? So there's a lot of cool things we can do based on the trace analytics on your pipelines. He also showed a lot about which dashboards they're using, how they provide this data back to the engineers to really report on these core DORA metrics. And now full circle, by getting visibility into your CI/CD tools, you will be able to say how often do you really deploy, how long do these pipelines run, how many of them are successful, how many of them are failing. But the journey doesn't end there, right? CI/CD is only part of DORA because it does not include the lead time from the idea of a new feature until it gets built and deployed. It doesn't yet include what happens if you deploy something and something later on fails in production. How long do you need to recover? These are also part of the DORA metrics. So what I'm talking about today is what we can easily, quote unquote, do on CI/CD. But this is why I said DORA is not easy, it's complicated because the whole SDLC expands beyond that. Yeah, with this, I want to conclude my part. If you want to learn more about the stuff that I talked about, how we do it internally in our organization, if you want to see Nicolas's talk from KubeCon last year on GitLab observability, or if you want to follow up with the open telemetry community on these standards, these are the 3 QR codes that you need. Hopefully this showed you and give you a little bit of at least of an idea on what type of observability, what observability allows you to do in order to get some of these DORA metrics. And I think to bring it home, I believe it's back to you.
Yes, back to the dogs. So I do have a question before I go through this. How many of you who are building a platform have to deal with getting budget signed off and getting headcount and more resources, and you don't have enough resources always? So this is where I really think as a community, as a cloud native community, we kind of need to do better at aligning all the platform value to the business value. So what I did here is put some of the DORA metrics and then really tried to map that onto what would your executive team care about, your leadership team care about. So, okay, I want to deploy more frequently because I want to get features out to market so that my marketing team's happy, my sales team's happy, I'm selling more, my ARR is going up, I'm reducing my churn rate because customers have what they want. Those are the sort of metrics that your exec team, your leadership team care about. And so as you're thinking about DORA metrics, you really should start thinking about how these map to those business metrics. And unless you understand what your goals are as a business, as the platform and what it's going to deliver, then you can't really align to those business impact. So these, again, are just some examples. You know, obviously reducing rates, you have to look at what your risk tolerance is, but based on that, you can say, hey, the platform is going to help us reduce risk by this. The platform is going to help us get out more features that the customers want, help us beat the competitors, all of that good stuff. So just remember, DORA metrics are really great on the software delivery side, but make sure you're translating those to your business side as well.
And for me, the last thing that I wanted to emphasize again, if you're building a platform, you're essentially building an internal product that will enable your engineers to become more efficient. Your product will be made out of 5, 10, 15 different tools. If these individual tools on their own don't work as expected, as I mentioned earlier, right? If your Jenkins is constantly failing, if your Argo cannot keep up with the syncs, if you're constantly running into API limits of Git, then your developers will A, not be happy, and B, you will not be able to deliver updates to your business or to security problems in time. So everything starts with making sure that that product that you're building internally, you're treating it as the most critical product that you're providing to your organization, because your engineers need to use this product to build new software and react to new business demand and react to problems that they need to fix. Okay?
And then, I think you've written a book on that, right?
We also wrote a book, Platform Engineering for Architects. That's true, yeah. There will be actually a talk from Max and Hillary in an hour or so, and there will also be some book signings at the Dynatrace booth tomorrow night. Yeah. And I think with this,
we're good.
We want to conclude, and if any questions, yeah, and follow up with us if you want to on LinkedIn. I think these are our 2 LinkedIn QR codes. They don't bring you to any malware. It's just LinkedIn.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Any questions? There's a,
yes.
Yep. Okay. So the question is, why do we start with Jira tickets? Jira tickets are a bottleneck. The Jira ticket is a start because our product engineer, our product managers need to specify what is the feature that we want to implement, right? We're using Jira for requirements management. I assume you use something like this, right? And lead time can be, if she's my marketing lead and she said, Andy, the hottest shit out there is right now, we need this feature, and it takes me a month to actually start implementing it, this is also bad lead time. So for me, lead time starts with, she has an idea, how long does it take from that idea to be refined enough for me to start coding until this is out with our customers? This is why lead time for me starts with the inception of an idea. Because if it takes you a year to follow up on a trend, then your competitors will probably be faster, right? And this is why lead time is a hard thing, because where does lead time start? Where does it end? It's not just from the first Git commit. It also should include the time, and that's why we're using Jira. There's a question. There's also a microphone. It might be easier. There's a microphone in the middle of the hallway. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for showing this good overview on the DORA. It really helps to just emphasize the importance of this in the business, because most of the times the observability is concern not being given importance by the business, because like you are going to spend some efforts, but business doesn't want to spend effort that has not been immediately getting you value. So in our case, like we built something as a custom API that could start the lead tracking by extracting this Jira ID and then adding it to the trace. So whenever the application runs, getting builds, so we are just adding it to the trace. But we also found this is a cool thing that you can do it with the Git. Whenever we are adding a commit, if Git could add that also in the trace, so that we can just see the full view of the whole lead time as well as also the change metric. But I could see like when it comes to the open trace, it's still evolving, right? Because like it's a community, everyone has to commit. And if you want to add something to a custom metric to that, it's not that, like how you could say, it's not readily available. So do you also feel the same concern, like if you are getting a pipeline metric or whatever it is? So if you want to have it included along with your flow, so do you find it difficult to get it when it comes to the open telemetry?
Well, we need to all contribute to this, right? As you said, the standard will only evolve if end users and vendors come together. We are from the vendor side, we're doing our part from the vendor side to shape that standard, but it's also up to you as the end user. And maybe one more thing on the Jira ticket, or any type of metadata, whether it's Jira or something else, think about it in a Kubernetes context. Add this information on your deployment, let's say as a Kubernetes annotation. Because then if you see a workload, then you can actually say, hey, this was initially created because of this particular Jira ticket. And we're over time, sorry for that.
Yeah.
But thanks for the questions, and follow up with us later on. Thank you so much. And thanks.
Thanks.